Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm really pleased to say we're going to be joined by Vivian Kleiman, the director, Alison Bechdel, and Rupert Kinnard. And there they are. Welcome, Vivian, Alison, Rupert. Can you see and hear us okay?
No, I can barely hear you.
Yeah,
Same
me
here.
either.
Is that better?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'm just going to speak much closer to the mic. So, my name is Melanie from Sheffield DocFest. I'm here with the audience, I'm here with the audience here in Sheffield in the cinema. We've also got an online audience watching from home. And yeah, I just want to give you a warm virtual welcome to Sheffield DocFest. Thank you so much for being with us.
Actually, a big honor to be honest.
Absolutely.
And congratulations on your international premiere. I'm just going to take a second just to explain to the audience how this is going to work. So I've got questions, but I'd love to relay yours. So if you, for any questions or comments, if you go to slido.com and the hashtag 776406, they'll come through to this tablet and I can relay them for you. We've actually even got a couple already, which is amazing. So I just want to start first, Vivian, by asking you what it was that these artists in this film meant to you personally, your own kind of journey in exploring comics and graphic novels, and at what point it was that you realized you wanted to explore it for a film.
Right. Well, first of all, I'm extremely honored to be at Sheffield, and I'm so regretful that this is one opportunity that I had to actually attend the festival personally, and I'm glad to at least have the opportunity to attend through the magic of technology. No Straight Lines is part portrait of five scrappy queer comic book artists, part 4 decades of queer life in the U.S., and part story of a do-it-yourself DIY art form that's often considered junk food for kids, but now is really the vernacular of the next generation. And I got introduced to it by a friend of mine, Greg Sirota, and his friend Justin Hall, who is an expert in the subject. And they encouraged me to attend the world's first in-gathering of queer comic book artists that was held in 2015. I walked into that conference hall and I was completely stunned by what I saw. Contrary to the stereotype of the curmudgeonly artist, this was a room full of amazing variety of queer people, from the gender non-binary young person with chartreuse colored hair to the older southern gentleman with a button-down collared shirt, surrounded by gender non-conforming trans artists, and all of them taking delight in one another. And I went, oh my God, this is so unusual and this is so wonderful. And the image making that they were doing was so poignant, and it had so many different emotional resonances. And the people were such great storytellers. So we had a plethora of great images, enormously wonderful storytellers, equals it's got to be a great film.
And it is. And thank you so much for sharing it with us. It's also a film that where the sense of community is obviously a really strong theme in it. But the sense of community also feels like it kind of comes through in the making of the film. It feels quite, almost like quite queer, that it's not profiling just one artist, it's profiling five. The fact that, the artists you're all commenting on what each other's work means to you, and that instead of bringing in, the usual kind of talking head experts, you've actually brought in more up and coming and emerging artists who are inspired by the artists that you're profiling, rather than sort of commenting from above, if you like. And yeah, I just feel like that sense of community really comes through for us as a viewer. And I guess I just wanted to ask, if you could kind of comment on that in terms of the making of the film and your own sense of being involved in the production of No Straight Lines as a community. And that question kind of for
Right,
all of you.
right. At the outset in launching the film, and by the way, to create a documentary in the United States, as in many other countries, requires an enormous dedication to fundraising. And there was a lot of pressure on me to do a very traditional film that had the expert, that had the scholar explaining what the story was about, what the history was, and why one should care about it. And I completely resisted that from the get go. I felt like people can talk about themselves, and anyway, a great film is about an emotional ride that will touch on many different emotions, and not so much about the head. My goal is to reach people in the heart first, and then make them curious about the questions that are raised. I actually had the first cut that I did was really focusing on the five artists that we chose, and I chose them in concert with my producer partner, Justin Hall. Um, I looked at it and it felt kind of static. It felt kind of like, oh, that's nice, that's interesting, but I don't know if anybody would watch it a second time. It didn't feel like there was enough meat on the bone or reason, connection to today. And there was a complicated set of circumstances, but I decided to take a risk. And I attended another of those conferences of queer comic book artists. I grabbed some young people, I threw them in front of the camera one at a time. I had literally 10 minutes total to meet them, find out who they were, and talk to them and try to get a sense from them as to why they were attending and why they might care about the history of queer comic books. And when we finished that day of shooting, my cinematographer turned and looked at me and said, "Viv, that's one of the most dynamic days of shooting I've ever had, and I have no idea how you're going to use this material." And I said to Andy, "Well, neither do I, but I have a hunch." So I guess the moral of the tale is, since there's an audience of a lot of people caring about documentary films, I guess the moral of the tale is to follow one's hunch and to circle back to community in including the young voices and eventually finding a space for them, a cadence of including them in the piece, sort of like a punctuation mark in my mind. I felt like it increased that sense of community and connection, not just among each other, which happened among the five pioneer artists, but between and among the pioneer artists and young people today.
Thank you. And Alice and Rupert, from your point of view, could you talk us a bit about how you got involved in the project, what it was, that excited you about being part of this film?
Um, who wants to go? Rupert, you want to take it?
Sure. Um, well, first of all, I'm really honored to be a part of this. Um, like what was said before, it would have been great to have been there in person. Really would have enjoyed that. I was really bowled over by even being asked to be a part of this documentary because there's just a part of my perception of my comic strip as being not within the world of comics, not within the world of underground comics, but I thought having created this whole other level of comics I thought the idea that I was a part of this as a sub underground cartoonist was more appropriate. And one of the things I really enjoyed about it is it kind of forced me into a certain perspective about my creative career and the history of this one character that I started out with, drawing the brown bomber in a sketchbook way back in 1976. I could have never imagined that there would be this long road of adventure that would lead me to being a part of this documentary. So I really, really appreciated being able to actually examine that journey from the beginning to where we are now. And I couldn't be in better company. I mean, I'm just in the midst of these artists that I've respected for, such a long time. And I've always just been, more than anything, truly, truly enamored of their drive. There's one thing to be creative and produce. There's another thing to be able to really get your work out there and really be distributed. So um, it's just been an extraordinary experience for me.
I just realized it was exactly 40 years ago this month that I picked up my first issue of Gay Comics at the Oscar Wilde Memorial Bookshop in New York City and realized that there were people writing and drawing comics about their queer lives. And I realized I could do that too. And I just want to say how grateful I am to Howard Cruz for making that comic book happen. And, for the path he created for all of us younger artists who came later is incredible. And also just that was his as a publisher, he did that amazing thing. But then as a personal friend and mentor, I think for many of the cartoonists in this movie, Howard has been an amazing personal force. And I just want to say how grateful I am to him and how sorry I am that he did not live to see this movie come out, because he's such a linchpin of this whole world.
Well, one of the things I end up doing, I feel quite a bit in celebrating not only the LGBTQ plus communities, but I've gotten into this point as I've gotten older. I really appreciate the concept of community. Um, and what Allison was saying about Howard, I think one of the reasons he's considered like the godfather of, queer comics is because he really did start that community. And so for Allison to relate that story is kind of another piece of the puzzle, why Howard is so important in our community.
It really seems from the film that he was an incredible human as well as artist, and yeah, I'm really sorry that he didn't get to see this film too. I've got quite a few questions from the audience, so I am going to go through as many as we can in the time that we've got. So I've got one question saying, beautiful film about incredible artists, an inspiration to queer creatives like me. The question is to Alison and Rupert. As creatives, how do you keep going when things feel too much?
Could you repeat that question?
As creatives, how do you keep going when things feel too much?
I don't know. I feel like I don't have any other option. You just have to keep going. If it were an option not to, I would have quit long ago. I think if you're really engaged with your calling, you will just keep finding a way to do it.
At some point in the film, someone was mentioning what an isolating existence it can be to be a cartoonist, because you're not really working with a group of people. It's just your own creativity. You're like one with the pen in terms of writing and drawing. And actually, I had a lot of passion for drawing my comic strip for quite a number of years. But I actually feel as if I kind of transitioned into an area of art that was different than cartooning. I started becoming more and more involved in graphic design. And one of the things, as a graphic designer, most of the jobs I had was of art as art director of publications. And I think what really drew me away, one of the things that drew me away from drawing my comic strip, was that I really enjoyed the creativity of a team. As art director, I work with writers, I work with other illustrators, other cartoonists, and so there was a period where I basically stopped doing my cartoon strip because I was more wanting to get outside of just the isolation of that kind of creativity, and I really wanted to collaborate with other people.
Thank you. We've got a couple of questions actually asking about the kind of more like emerging scene of artists and cartoonists, asking, who is it that you're reading? Where is it that you're going to find work? We've got a question about how you feel about web comics. I guess, where are you going to find new work? On what kind of platforms? And which artists are you kind of particularly excited by at the moment?
I would say that I feel really overwhelmed by the amount of new work out there. And also, I just want to give a shout out to Jen Camper and Justin Hall for their amazing conferences, these two queer cartoonist conferences that they organized in 2015 and 2017, which brought together this whole flood of young artists with the older, more established artists. And I think it, indirectly led to this documentary happening, with this clash of I was amazed at the first conference I went to in 2015. I felt like I finally understood why families have do events together, why they celebrate birthdays or bat mitzvahs or weddings. Like, I've never enjoyed going to those kind of family events, but this comics conference felt like, oh, this is what families must feel like when they all get together to celebrate. I felt like I could see these younger people, who were coming up, and I saw, people who had inspired me to do my work, and it was just this incredible feeling of connection and continuity. I completely forget what the question was.
About which artists you're excited by, and also about how you feel about webcomics.
Yeah, so I'm finding it difficult to keep up with all these people. In the old days, I knew everyone's work and I had all their work on my shelf. Now it's absolutely impossible. I will just give one example of one place I'm reading comics, which is on a political comics website called the Nib, an American political site. But there's great stuff by queer artists on there, especially Joey Allison Sayers is one of my favorite cartoonists. She's a trans cartoonist and just very wickedly funny.
I have to echo almost everything Allison said, including acknowledging Justin and Jennifer. They really have been so responsible for organizing these queers and comics conferences, and I've been overwhelmed, to the extent that I don't feel like I follow anything, any one strip, or even becoming involved with the web strips. It makes me feel very antiquated that I can't keep up with that. But probably the most recent artist that I really would love to give a shout out to, and as far as I know, he's not a queer cartoonist, but Aaron McGruger is the author of a comic strip called The Boondocks. And I actually became more um, aware of his work once he um, had his comic strip animated into a series that's been on cable television for quite a while. And he's like another level of this thing that I so appreciate when artists are they go really truly beyond the line, over the line in their directness, and they're confronting so many of the concerns they have about their communities. And so whereas I think of cathartic comics, many people have commented that one of the things they've liked about the strip is that it's almost like a gentle humor about very pretty serious subject matters. And then you take a strip like Boondocks, and it's so in your face in terms of tackling issues of race and perceptions of people of color. So one of the things I feel I've encountered at those conferences is this: as you get younger and younger, there's almost like this more and more unbridled confrontation of so much of what you're confronted with in this culture. So that's one of the things I really feel as if I've gotten from some of the younger cartoonists, and the fact that they incorporate not only being queer, but with so many other aspects of their lives. If they're struggling with health issues, physical or mental health issues, the way they incorporate that within their cartoons impresses me so much because it really presents them as more complete people.
Yeah, that's one of the points that one of the, and I can't remember which one, but one of the younger artists in the film who's talking about, I'm queer, but I'm also this, that, and the other, and that kind of, intersectionality and really kind of, yeah, again, like comes through as a kind of theme in the film. We've got, I'm going to ask one more question of all three of you, and that is, I've got a couple of questions that are kind of asking what next for you all, and in terms of projects and so on. And I want to start with Vivian, and I appreciate the film has, this is only your international premiere. You only made your world premiere a few days ago, so it may be too early to say kind of what's next for you. But if so, I want to ask kind of what's next for this film, for No Straight Lines, and what are your kind of hopes for it as it makes its way out into the world?
Well, thank you for acknowledging that there will be a lot of work involved in distribution. I'm very much looking forward to having the work reach new audiences and being, as you were noting, being a bridge between this wonderful community of people and others. I actually do have the honor of announcing that I was a recipient of a fellowship that will start at the end of the year, and I will be given a large check to just sit back and do whatever I want, which may just be sit on a white sandy beach for a little while. But actually, to be serious, I did have a project in mind, a very particular one. It had to do with the relationship of sound in artwork. But given that idea was developed prior to the pandemic, and now, having lived through the past year and a half, all the loss, all the struggle, all the stress, I think that my plans are shifting. So stay tuned. I will keep you posted.
And Rupert?
Well, honestly, it's really because of my involvement in No Straight Lines
Mhm.
that once again I became more interested in how did the Brown Bomber go from being a little character in my sketchbook to my being featured in a feature-length documentary. So there's so many uh, adventures along the way, and from my sketchbook to becoming an editorial cartoon featuring the Brown Bomber to being published in queer publications and having Diva Touche Flambe join the strip, um, and one young cartoonist at one of the cartoon um, queers and cartoons conferences, um, creating a number of Wikipedia pages for some of the artists that he thought really needed that recognition. Um, from that point, it seemed as if my career enjoyed a resurgence. So, and the bottom line is, there's been enough unusual circumstances having to do with the development of the cartoon that made me really want to create a history of the comic strip, and featuring cartoon strips from my college days and from the early days of Diva, and the before the introduction of some of the other characters. So I'm really excited, and I'm like maybe 80% finished with this book, and I'm very happy with it just because it has so many different artifacts. And in a way, once again, I was um, influenced by Allison because she put out a book that featured some of her earlier drawings and um, rare pieces of work that hadn't been seen in public. So I'm really thrilled about just working on something having to do with the actual history of the comic strip.
And Alison, I know you had a book out just last month.
Yes, my book, The Secret to Superhuman Strength, is just out. Yeah, the UK edition was published in May. And I'm also currently working on adapting Dykes to Watch Out For, my old comic strip, to into a television, like an animated television show. I don't know if anything will come of that, but I'm working on it.
Really hope that makes it to the UK too. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for your time. It's been brilliant to meet all three of you. I'm so sorry that we're out of time, and I know that we had more questions, but we do need to let the next film in. And I just have to say, I think, it's, in the same way that we've heard in the film from so many artists talking about how they've been inspired by your work, it's been really nice to hear from you about what you're, giving us tips on artists that you're reading. That's really great to be able to kind of take that away. Thank you. So yeah, thank you so much. And congratulations on your international premiere. Thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you so much, Melanie, for all that you've done, and thank you, everybody, for attending the screening. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for all your questions. I am sorry that we didn't get through them all. If you'd like to recommend No Straight Lines, it remains on our Selects player for another 72 hours, so please do tell your friends. We are coming towards the end of DocFest now, but we do have another few titles, including some of our award winners, coming on at around 7:30, 8, and 8:30. So yeah, check out the program for the rest of the evening. Thank you for coming.